I joined Netflix because of their commitment to giving passionate African local storytellers and content creators a worldwide platform to share their vision. Every day, every single day. I sat on my mother's couch and I stared out of the window watching the snow fall. It seemed to give me some kind of comfort. I heard my mother walk into the kitchen and I barely turned to acknowledge her. I faintly heard the clinking of utensils as she made and she ate her breakfast, and I sat staring blankly out of the window. I was watching the snow fall. "I'll see you in the evening," she said, and I nodded in acknowledgement, and I said goodbye. I stayed on the couch and I watched the snow fall. My mother returned in the evening to find me still sitting on the couch, staring out of the window. A few days later, my mother would borrow money from a friend and buy me a one-way ticket to Nairobi, Kenya. Go figure this Africa storytelling thing out. And when you do, you can buy your return ticket to visit us, and then you can go back. But just go figure this storytelling thing out. Go do it. A week later, I packed my bags to go back to Kenya, a country I had left a few months earlier after what seemed like the biggest failure ever in my entire life. But how did I get here? Let's backtrack. Let's start from the beginning. I was born some 44 years ago, the second born in a family of 4 children. My father, a chemical engineer, my mother, an accountant. I was a normal child. I watched an enormous amount of television. You know, I asked my sister, she's sitting there. We used to fight for the remote control. And I got into a bit of a lot of trouble. Let me tell you a story about something that happened. When I was about 10 years old, my mother dropped me at school. And she told me at 3:45, when school is out, I expect you to come and stand at the gate. I will come and get you at 4 o'clock. So when school was out at 3:45, I went and I stood at the gate and I waited for her. The problem is, I saw some of my friends that were laughing and chatting, and they said they were going to go and play. And they said to me, "Dorothy, do you want to come?" And who am I to say no? So I said yes. And we went off and we played. And at 4 o'clock, my mother came to pick me up at the school gate. Now I'd like you to imagine a mom who shows up to pick up her daughter, only to find the daughter's bag and shoes at the gate, but no daughter inside. So the search began for me. And they looked for me, and they looked for me, and 2 hours later, they found me. I was playing so hard that I didn't notice my mother coming towards me. And when I looked up and I saw her, I knew that that evening, you all know how it went. And that is how 1 week later, on my 11th birthday, I found myself standing in front of a tall, imposing, yet gentle woman who would be my new school head teacher. My parents had decided to send me to boarding school. This place, they believed, would harness the boundless energy that I had and redirect it towards something more useful and meaningful. Now, boarding school turned out to be a fun experience, but also one that forced me to focus on my academic work, because that was suffering in the other school, because, I was playing, And so this new school, all this effort yielded a pretty amazing score in my high school entrance exams. And in 1990, I was admitted to one of Kenya's pioneer secondary education institutions for girls. Founded in 1948 by the Alliance of Protestant Missions, the Alliance Girls High School was the first institution, of higher secondary education for African girls in Kenya. All the other girls at that time in Kenya only admitted European girls. Before Kenya's independence, it was called the African Girls High School, and it was the first of 5 schools in Africa to offer higher school certificate for girls, which was a requirement for university entrance. My parents truly had bright hopes and dreams for me. I was going to be that child who was going to make them proud, probably become a doctor or an engineer. Ironically, in this very academic institution is where I discovered my passion for the creative arts. In my first week of school, I discovered the drama and the music clubs, and that marked the beginning of my lifelong relationship with the creative arts. After sitting for my university entrance exams, I told my parents that I wanted to go to University of California in Los Angeles, or as we call it, UCLA, to study film. Now, whilst fascinated by my craziness, they were having none of it. They promptly shipped me to law school in Australia, where my sister Sandra was. Like every parent, and in this case, every African parent, they wanted me to go and study something that would land me a pretty well-paying job that would give me a sense of financial security. In 1998, my mother moved to Canada from Kenya, and 4 years later, my siblings and I, we followed suit. I took this migration opportunity to distance myself from anything to do with the law. Moving to Canada seemed like a perfect escape from the misery and the meandering of my somewhat meaningless academic life. I later joined Andrews University in Michigan to study political science and communication, and which, whilst not terribly exciting, was a far more palatable experience for me. I later landed my first job at Jefferson Partners in Toronto, a venture capital firm that specialized in investing in tech companies. This was my foray into corporate Canada and the first of many unsatisfying jobs. In the year 2007, I decided to pack my bags and leave Toronto. I was in desperate need of a fresh start, a well-paying job, and some meaning and purpose to my life. Edmonton provided that solace, and it gave me a fresh start. My mother was already living here, and she told me, come. All I knew about Edmonton was that it was an oil and gas hub and attracted many immigrants. And so I packed my bags and I moved west. Unbeknownst to me, Edmonton would be the place that I would come to terms with my purpose. At that time, I was part of a Christian African a cappella music group called Soul Influence. We were a group of arguably very talented singers from Kenya and Zambia and Ghana and Zimbabwe. Our musical talents opened lots of doors for us and opportunities for us to sing. And one of these opportunities was to tour Africa. We went to Kenya and we went to Zambia. After a week of touring with a group in Zambia, we packed ourselves into a van and we decided to head to Victoria Falls. And barely 2 hours on the road, we got involved in a road accident. I remember this so very clearly. We had gotten into the van. We were so excited. We were chatting and singing and laughing and we were just generally having a great time. And suddenly, everybody got quiet and people started reading and sleeping, and I went to the back of the van and I lay on the back seat and I fell asleep. And the next thing I heard was a loud noise and I fell on the floor of the van. And I remember waking up so shocked, thinking everyone for themselves and God for us all. And I got up and I jumped out of the window and I ran across the road because for some odd reason I thought that this van was going to burn. Of course, it didn't burn. What happened is that our driver had fallen asleep and we veered off the road and we hit this very huge tree. And so our trip was cancelled and we had to turn around and go back to Lusaka so some of my friends who were slightly hurt could be looked at by a doctor. And as we were traveling back, when I would sleep, when I would close my eyes to sleep because I was very tired, I kept on having these nightmares in my head. And when I was awake, I had these questions going through my mind. And one of those questions was, if today was the last day, if today was my last day on earth, would I say that I had lived my best life ever? And the answer was no. And so I returned to Edmonton and I quit my job at the Alberta Cancer Board. I need not tell you my mother's reaction. Never mind that I had quit a job in Toronto to move to Edmonton. I was now quitting my job in Edmonton. I want to be an actress, I told her. To be a parent is a constant exercise in self-restraint. I could see the incredulity and frustration in her eyes. An actress? Really? What do you mean, an actress? But I held my ground, and she was furious at me. A few days later, she turned up at my apartment. She walked in, she sat down, and she said to me, "So what is your strategy? What is your plan? How are you going to achieve this dream?" And so a few days later, I shared with her my strategy. And from then on, she was steadfast in her support, and she has remained that way since then. Now, Edmonton, whilst beautiful and friendly and welcoming, is by no means Hollywood. No. I quickly realized that I was not going to be the next Oprah Winfrey or Denzel Washington by hanging around Jasper Avenue. So I packed my bags and returned to Toronto. What followed was a year of auditions, rejections, existing on the brink of poverty, finding my meals in the pantry shelves of local food banks, barely making my rent in a 2-room basement apartment, walking to odd jobs because I could not afford bus fare. Show business is a very difficult business. The lights and cameras and glamour of the entertainment industry is deceptive. Behind the fancy gowns and well-pressed tuxedos is a ton of sacrifice, hard and unglamorous work that goes into building an entertainment career, and the odds of achieving even a small amount of success are slim to none. Statistics indicate that there are 5 million screen actors in the world, and only 2% earn a living from acting. The constant rejections I got were both gut-wrenching and heartbreaking. To be told over and over and over again, you don't look the part. You don't fit the part. Your accent is not